This one's called The Inaction of Good Men. There were dead bodies everywhere. Standing in the cove of my favorite swamp, with gun in hand, I surveyed the scene. One, two, three beautiful drake wood ducks were belly up in front of me, floating lifeless on the still water. Normally, I'd be ecstatic about the limit of birds, but this time there was a problem. My gun was still cold. I hadn't fired a single shot. In fact, no one had, at least not that morning. Nobody was in the swamp. It was completely silent when I had walked in, but these birds had holes in them that said that they hadn't died of natural causes. I felt sick to my stomach. I just couldn't fathom how anyone could do such a thing. My first impulse was one of disgust, and disappointment quickly followed. If I called the warden, my hunt was over. But if I didn't make the call, those birds would be counted as mine by any law enforcement officer who might stumble by. Nobody would believe that I hadn't shot them, and I didn't want to be accused of doing such a thing. Calling the warden was the right thing to do, but I knew that doing so would cause him to go out of his way to frequent my favorite spot. Even rightfully so, I didn't want to be harassed every time I went there. In the end, I did the wrong thing. I simply left the swamp. I didn't know it at the time, but nearly a decade would pass before I would ever return again. I didn't want to encounter the people who essentially killed those birds just to leave them float. I didn't want to argue with them, be bothered with reporting them, or take the chance of hunting there knowing something like that could happen again, and I just didn't want to get caught up in the middle of it all. My inaction not only allowed the guilty killers to get away with what they did, it haunted me for years and years. Just the other day, I finally went back to that swamp with a younger friend who needed a place to hunt. As we kayaked around past my old, now fallen down duck blind, and through the cove where I had last stood before abandoning the place, wood ducks flushed by the dozens. It should have been a beautiful scene, serene, spectacular, but all I could think of was how I wished I had handled things differently, and how it was too late now to ever do so. Christian men, good men, we have now entered into a time where we cannot afford inaction. The entire world is noticeably groaning for the sons of God to manifest themselves. We can no longer remain silent as church houses are closed, as pastors are jailed for preaching the word of God, as our public school system attempts to indoctrinate and sexualize the minds of our children, or as the government dictates what is acceptable as a belief system and what is not. Our inaction at this moment in time will not fail to be accounted to us. The Bible warns that the one who is slack in his work is a brother to him who destroys. The future of our children rests in our very hands, now more than ever before, and there will be no going back to rectify the damage that is incurred if we choose to turn our backs. Now is the time to be seen. Now is the time to be heard. We must not walk away from this fight. James chapter 4 verse 17 says, "So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin."